Dr. Perry, welcome back.
Always a pleasure to see you, sir.
Yes, it is.
And by the way, I'd like to see you more frequently.
Oh, well, check us out on the YouTube channel. I'm always there.
Okay.
Thanks for coming back. We just went through a really rough election where, the news was exaggerating both sides and telling us the outcome, and totally different outcome became of it. So half the country is happy that their candidate won, and half the country is a little bit on the edge because
a little bit.
Well, I'm trying to be nice.
Okay, yeah, that's another thing. You may want to just push that over here for a while.
Yeah, okay, we'll frame it that way.
Okay.
So, but my question to you is, as a clinical psychologist, which you are,
yes,
you have a doctorate in that.
Yes.
What do you think is the psychology of the United States right now, with the winners and the losers?
Oh boy, I would say the disquiet for a large population of people in this country, the disquiet is rather profound. And what I would say is there's a whole bunch of people who have done a better job at sort of managing their life, that they're really much happier with what's happened so far, because people who generally take more initiative to be in charge, take more initiative to do a good job, to clean up their mess, to take responsibility, to improve their own character and contribute to society. People who do that, which is a relatively small population of people, invariably think the outcome is pretty good.
Yeah.
For the same, just look at the obvious. Mostly, you'll notice that the Republicans have done really well with the election.
Yeah, they did. Well, they got the presidency, and they also have the House and the Senate.
Exactly right.
And then the judicial, the Supreme Court is full of people that believe in the Constitution. So, yeah, I think conservatism is thriving right now in the United States.
If you just think about being conservative, let's just take a look at the quick obvious here. Would you say that if you want to be successful, it's a real good idea to manage money in a mature fashion?
Of course it is. I mean, if you plan for the future and not expect somebody to bail you out and be accountable for yourself, which is what conservatism teaches you,
yes,
then yeah, you're going to be better off. You're not going to depend on anybody or any system to bail you out.
So could we say most people do that, or most people do not do that?
Yeesh. I personally know a lot of people that do that. But if you were to ask me about the whole population, I'd say most people don't.
That's exactly right. So could we say, pardon me, people who take responsibility for their own future invariably are going to spend more time taking care of their own future?
Yes.
So could we say, for example, people who put a lot of premium on making sure the family works well, and there's manners and character, and there's commitment and love and understanding and learning how to deal with issues when they show up. Could we say that the families who put a premium on all that generally are more functional than the families who don't?
Well, of course, because if you make those foundations like you're talking about with a strong family core, anything that comes in and shakes up that system that you've already built up, that foundation,
yes,
it's gonna withstand. It's not a house of cards.
So
it's built on a solid foundation. So yes.
So back to your earlier question, the result of the election for a certain population of people has made their day.
Yes.
They're thinking, well, finally, we're going to have a better country.
Right.
And then there's a whole bunch of people who are in tears, and they're very upset, and they're saying things like, I'm going to leave the country, that kind of thing.
Do you think this time they really will leave the country?
They never left the country several years ago, so they're probably not going to leave the country now.
Right. So how do you think they're coping with the system that's happening right now with the change?
Poorly.
Yeah. So what's their next step?
Their next step?
Yeah.
Or what I recommend them to do?
Well, what if somebody came to you that was really disappointed with the election and wanted to use your professional help and paid you money to give them good advice and show them the path?
You mean the way they do after all these years of doing this?
Yes. Yeah. Well, what would you tell them to change, to do, to look forward to?
Well, the very first thing I would do, I would simply say, how are things working for you? And are they likely to have a cogent answer to the question?
Well, no, they're not going to, because
That's right. So
they're living
therefore-
in a supposed reality for them that nothing is their fault.
Okay,
It's always
so,
somebody else's fault.
So could we say they take responsibility for their lives or they don't?
They don't.
Okay, so could we say, gee, learning how to take responsibility for yourself is probably a pretty good practice to engage in and do ad nauseum?
So don't wait for somebody else to do it for you. Build the family foundation
Yeah.
with your spouse, your siblings, your son,
Yes.
your aunts,
Yes.
your immediate family, and don't expect somebody else to fix your problems.
Could we say that could be a giant focus on the obvious?
Yes.
Okay. Therefore, if people are unhappy because of what happened with the election, is it fair to conclude they're very unhappy because it didn't turn out the way they wanted?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it supposed to turn out the way they wanted?
Well, that's a loaded question, because if they're in a bubble where the people that they listen to are telling them that your candidate is like the second coming of Jesus, very smart, very articulate, and this is a person that she's going to win really easily because she's great, because she has joy, she's awesome, and then it doesn't happen. Yeah, the reality kind of got shattered a little bit. So how do they deal with that?
Kind of got shattered.
I'm trying to be nice, Dr. Perry.
Okay. Listen, despite the fact that I really admire your trying to be
Yes.
nice, please know there's no result here that has
Okay.
any value.
Okay, they're completely broken. Some of them are.
A lot of
like
them
you
are
said,
they're miserable.
they're ready to shave their heads.
Yeah.
They're ready to stop having sex with their partners because they voted a different way than they are. They're ready to leave the United States. And so, yeah,
they want to cut their hair.
Yeah. So, what does that tell you about them? They're blaming other things for what happened.
Well, let me give you a paradigm that will help you get your arms around what's really
Okay.
going on.
Okay.
I always talk about this in terms of the way life is supposed to be, and then the way life is. So let's just do that for the moment.
Sure.
Okay. Could we say growing up, young people have a series of rather peculiar conclusions about how life should be? Mm-hmm. Could we say as they get older and get older and they get older, they realize that the way life is different from the way they think it should be?
Well, of course, that's what they think, because when they're growing up, they're dependent on their parents to, give them everything that they need. And as they get older, they have to be self-sufficient.
Oh, no, they have to take responsibility for themselves.
Well, if you're in a family that builds the foundation, yes.
Yes, okay. So to what extent, if you're a parent, is it a good idea to help your children know how to take responsibility for themselves?
It's very important.
So could we say if life is going really good for them, they did that?
If a lot of times it's not that easy, because if the parents have
The question
means to do
is,
it,
if life is going really well, did they do that?
yeah, they did it themselves.
Okay, and
they're
if-
accountable.
And if life stinks, did they do that?
My answer is yes,
And-
but their answer might be no. It's somebody else's fault.
Right now, we're talking about the obvious as
But
opposed
the
to
obvious
what
is
their
yes,
answer.
of course. Everybody, makes their own path. So whatever
Whoa,
the outcome
hold-
is,
Before you start thinking people make their own path, you're under the illusion that they do, because if they make their own path, then they're doing something called taking responsibility.
well, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, do most people do that?
Once again, a lot of people I know do, but most people probably don't.
Okay, so the answer is most people don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so could we say, gee, regardless of whatever your age is and your activity and what happens in life, is it fair to conclude that, gee, if your life is going really well and you're really proud and it's working well, you're contributing to society, you have good relationships, and if you have children, you're bringing your children up to be good citizens. Is it fair to conclude that probably has a pretty good outcome?
Absolutely. I'd say you have a better chance of the opposite, because like you said, originally you are building the foundation with all those values that you're teaching your kids
Yes.
to become, a good part of society.
So the next question is that an important thing to do?
Absolutely.
And do most people do that?
Probably not. Probably not.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So, what about the winners of the Republicans that think that everything's going to be fixed and everything? What are their expectations, and what should they expect, and what do you think would be a good outcome?
First off, if you just think of the masses and what they do with their lives, we can say that a lot of people have lots of hope about something. They feel pretty good about it now. They're spending more money now for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
And having said that, there's always going to be a gap between how you think it should be and how it is.
Right.
And if you try to cut corners, is cutting corners a good thing to do with your life?
No shortcuts come unpunished.
That's right. So could we say if you treat your family poorly, that's going to have counterproductive outcomes?
Yes, all the time.
And could we say if your kids get involved with things like the wrong element of people, or they're doing drugs or whatever, and they're encouraged to do so, or they're just allowed to do whatever they're doing, could we say that's counterproductive?
Yes, that's very counterproductive.
All right, so therefore, really, let's go back at something I talk about all the time. And that is, if you think about your life, first off, do you notice your life goes by pretty quickly?
Especially when you start paying bills. Because when you don't pay bills, it goes really slow.
Yes, it does.
I mean, you're a 12-year-old, you want to be 18. And then time slows down quite a bit. But as soon as you start paying your first bill, holy shit, it's the first of the month again. So yes, time does fly by when you're older and paying bills.
And by the way, that I'm struck. My dad told me that many years ago.
He did?
Yeah, he looked at me and he said, this just before he died, he said, "Son, you really are the real deal. You're highly educated, you're doing well, you're traveling all over the place, you're contributing to society, and I think that's wonderful." And then he said the same thing that every son wants to hear from their dad.
What did
he
he say?
said it to me.
What did he say?
He said, "I'm proud of you."
Wow. You heard it.
I heard it. Of course, it was a long time waiting.
Yeah.
But the point is, he said it.
Never too late to say it.
Every son wants to hear that from their dad. Everyone.
Yeah.
And so I was just thrilled that he said that. But the point is, somehow I had lived my life in such a way that he decided I was the real deal. And that, I was thrilled that my dad told me that.
Yeah.
And he taught me a lot about how to do life.
Right.
And I will always be appreciative for my dad doing that. He taught me how to save money. He taught me how to be successful. He taught me how to do what you and I would call the obvious.
Yeah.
The obvious would be if you have a good buddy friend, his name is Fred, and Fred does a nice thing for you, good idea or bad idea to say, "Thank you, Fred."
It's always a good idea.
Oh.
You have to acknowledge people for when they do good. Yeah.
Could we say that's another giant slice of the obvious?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
But why are obvious things not so obvious to some people?
Well, a lot of people somehow think they deserve to have all this stuff given to them.
Uh-huh.
And also a whole bunch of people.
Where does that come from? Does that come from society? Does that come from a different upbringing? Does that come from a place of abundance? Where does that come from?
There's any number. I mean, I could talk ad nauseum about where it comes from. What I would say to you is most people daydream, for example. When they daydream, they sort of want life to turn out like this.
Right.
And very often, if life is supposed to turn out like this, you ever notice when it comes to fruition, whatever it is you're getting is different from the way it's supposed to be.
Oh, it's 100% of the time.
Okay,
You always set a goal.
So
You never get to your original goal. You get to a different goal. Sometimes better, sometimes worse.
So could we say, gee, if you want life to be pretty good for you, you got to figure out how do you take initiative to shape that outcome?
Yeah.
And do most people spend the time and effort to figure that out?
Oh, the people that are successful do.
Yes.
The ones that are always trying to find somebody else to blame for it, no. They
Exactly.
never find it.
Yeah.
Actually, they didn't even look for it. They're too busy feeling sorry for themselves.
Well, remember, it's very popular. You know what the single most common counterproductive thought process people go through now in this country?
What is it?
Being victims, professional victims. You have no idea what I've gone through.
Yeah, I think our society is that way. I think it's shifting though. Maybe this election will help shift it a little bit.
Maybe. My thoughts are people who are, for example, Republicans who are winning the election
Right.
are excited. And the reason they're excited is because it looks like, what do you know, maybe we can change this country to be by far more responsible
Yeah. Well,
and more grown up.
teach more of the fundamentals of strong family values.
Fully functioning adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yet a whole bunch of other people out there have this feeling of poor me and what have you done for me lately?
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that the people that are struggling with the results of the elections, the ones that lost the election, all the progressives,
Yes.
all the left-leaning people that think that
Yes.
that the government should fix everything,
Yes.
and that there's no accountability because you want to do whatever you feel like doing.
Yes.
Do you think they're going to get a rude awakening, or you think they're just going to be blaming everything and not change?
Well, let me ask you this. How much, when you think about the professional victims out there,
Uh-huh.
how much do those people spend time trying to right the boat and get it going in a good direction? Or how much do they spend all their time being, for example, homeless and poor me?
Well, I don't think they do, because if you think you're a victim, then by definition it's not your fault, so you can't control not being a victim.
So therefore,
So how do you get out of that loop?
how do you get out of the loop of
You
being
as
a
a
victim?
you as a psychologist, how do you get people to notice that they're saying, "Hey, you're playing the victim card.
Well, if I'm
You
playing,
you need to buckle up and get your life straight."
yes. The point though is, do most people know how to do that, or do most people have to get help on how to do that?
I think I don't know, because I'm not. I've never been a victim mentality person.
Neither have I.
Because if I can't control it, then nobody can control it. And if I can control it, I just make the change.
Well, all that's true. It's just that most people want to take the easy route
And blame something else.
and say, "Poor me."
Yeah. Okay. Well, how do you make them switch that in their brain?
Well,
Do they have to come to you and ask you for help? Do they have to have a little opening, a little window into, hey, I need to change my way because this ain't working?
I was talking to a patient the other day,
Okay.
and he was trying to get a job. Of course, I've had this experience with so many different patients with this. My son is 22 years old and he can't figure out what he wants to be when he grows up. And I thought, he's 22. When does he grow up? So my experience is that most people like the easy way. And when it's the easy way, it's almost about, what can I do for free? Or how can I get this for free? Whatever that is.
Yeah.
And yet people who really do something well with their lives, where they really are unafraid and they are actually contributing to society, the quality of their life is by far better than everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just that, how do I do this? Let's suppose I wanted to learn how to play piano.
Okay.
And let's suppose I had a piano.
Okay.
And the next question is, let's suppose I decided to learn how to do it all by myself. How good would I be at playing piano?
You would suck at it.
Exactly. So what's the likelihood that I'd go the distance on learning how to play piano?
Well, you'd have to go find some help,
From
some guidance from somebody that knows how to play the piano.
Exactly right. So is it fair to conclude that, gee, if I'm really going to take take inventory of the obvious?
So you have to be self-aware that you have to change.
Well, I talked to a guy the other day, and he's going through a divorce. And his wife is making life miserable for him. And I said, so have you got yourself an attorney? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, well, how do you like your attorney? Well, she's not very good. Okay, so
Get another one.
do you think that this is going to be a nasty divorce? And he said, yes. And I said, well, how's that working for you? And he said, it isn't. And I said, so what are your thoughts about getting a real tough customer attorney?
Yeah.
I suppose I could do that.
Yeah.
The point is, was he doing anything about it? The answer is
No.
no.
He wanted you to tell him what to do.
So I did tell him what to do
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
now he's paying me to help him get his ducks lined up in a row.
Okay. So to those people that are going through that right now, maybe try to get some help from somebody, but become
Yeah.
self-aware of it first and say, hey, okay, this isn't working. I got to change.
If you want to learn how to play piano, it'd be helpful if you talk to somebody who knows how to play
yeah.
piano.
Right.
Or if you want to get an attorney because you got a legal problem, how about you go get an attorney?
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to do that, you might do something called talk to a bunch of people you know and ask.
Right. Okay. What about on the other spectrum? Say the winners, the Republicans, they won. They got the House, they got the
Yes.
Senate, and they got the presidency.
Yes.
I imagine some of them are expecting everything to be fixed now because they're in control and they can fix everything. How do you get them to come down to reality where it says, okay, they're going to fix some things, which is going to make it easier for the family to flourish, for business to flourish, and for less regulation, but that's not going to fix all your problems.
That's correct.
What do you tell them? What's the message you tell them?
Well, I very often say some form of, let's take a quick inventory of exactly what the problems are for you.
Personalize it.
Oh, you think?
You make too much sense, Dr. Perry.
I know. I'm trying to be better.
Yeah. Okay. Good job. Good job. Okay.
The reality is, let's try it this way. Supposing you had a disease.
Mm-hmm.
You've got,
The measles, whatever.
sure, pick a disease, any disease.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best thing to do if you were to do something about your disease?
Well, go to a professional that knows how to cure that disease.
Oh, my God. It's kind of like the piano instructor.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. And let me rephrase that. Not find a professional, find a good professional.
Yes. And
Because like your client that was visiting you, he had a lawyer, but it was a crappy lawyer.
Right.
So find
Exactly.
somebody that can actually help you with the problem.
Exactly
that can
right.
teach you how to play the piano.
Yeah.
That can take care of the measles.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to fire them.
This is called the obvious.
Yeah.
And most people either don't want to pay the freight to deal with the obvious, or they say, "Oh well, we'll get to it later. Not now. I don't want to talk about it right now." You ever have people do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's have got a real drug problem,
Yeah.
and they're
Well, they're not ready to face consequences or face the fact that they're screwing up.
exactly
And
right.
that could be with drugs. That could be with learning new things. That could be with
any number of
managing
circumstances.
your personal life, your
That's right.
expenses.
That's right.
They just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
They'd rather push it to the side and deal with it supposedly later, but that later never comes.
Exactly.
And then they're
And
70
do you
years
know
old.
what's required at that point? It's so obvious people don't get it. Do you know what's really required that gets people to have that outcome for a long time?
What is it?
They never learn discipline.
Yeah.
What is discipline? My parents, I learned discipline.
Getting shit done that has to be done. That's what discipline is. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you said you'd do it, do it.
Yeah.
If you're going to clean it up, clean it up. If somehow or another you can be counted on to follow through,
Yeah.
then follow through.
Right. So to narrow it all down, there's not a system. There's not a band of banditos. There's not professionals that are going to fix your problem. You are in charge of your problem. You caused your problem. You are responsible to fix it.
Yes. Now, that said, just like the piano instructor, if you want to play piano that sounds like music, it'd be helpful if you had a piano instructor.
Right.
So the reality is, I don't fix anybody in all my patients that I've been doing for God knows how long.
Yeah.
I don't fix anybody. I just show people how to fix themselves.
Yeah. But
And then they're either going to do it or they're not.
Right. But the piano instructor is not going to show up to your house to play the piano unless you go look for him.
Oh, no. Now, once
Yeah.
again, you're confusing this with common sense
Yeah.
and logic.
Oh, I found a little common sense the other day and I put it in my back pocket. Okay, Dr. Perry. Another thing that I wanted to touch on with you and kind of, pick your brain on it.
Sure.
We just went, like I said, through a really tumultuous election where you had propaganda from the right, propaganda from the left.
Right.
And people were all, getting on each other's nerves.
And they still are.
Yes. So how do you tell people to not let that affect your personal life? To, if the TV show or the YouTube channel or the X meme that you saw triggers you to be upset or angry, how do you make that not affect your personal life?
Well, let me put it to you this way. There's the way life should be, and then there's the way life is. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So could we say very often your entire life is dealing with the difference between the way life should be and the way life is?
Yes.
It didn't turn out the way you wanted.
Right.
You expected this and that didn't happen. Or you worked overtime and you didn't get the job, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The point is, if you want to actually find your smile and keep it, if you want to look in the mirror and feel really pleased with what you see, then it's important for you to lose weight or to work out or to finish your education,
Right.
or quit your belly aching about it. I'm just struck with how many people spend all their time complaining about a circumstance that they could do something about if they'd actually get off their backside and do it.
Go look for that piano teacher. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very good advice. So, Dr. Perry, the conversation that I wanted to get out of you, I already got out of you. I do have some rapid fire questions, if you don't mind my asking them for you.
Proceed.
Okay. Let me get my list right here. It's upside down. First one is, how do you feel about the woke virus that's affecting the United States of America?
I think the woke nonsense is complete garbage. I think it is a whole bunch of whiners that somehow or another want to believe in the way life should be. And so they come up with the woke idea and the pronouns and all that ridiculous stupidity that they keep promoting.
So is that like living in in La La Land where they
Yeah.
think this is the way the beautiful world should be?
Remember,
where everybody can remember everybody's pronouns
please.
and
It's just-
everybody's with rainbows and unicorns and
Yeah.
everybody's singing Kumbaya,
yeah.
which is never going to happen.
Never going to happen. What it is it's a frantic need to structure something that they could promote for other people to adopt so that we all can be brilliant together.
Do you think that's part of the propaganda to get you to shift you to a certain way?
Well, let me try this on for size. Have
Sure.
you ever heard of the people who get into a cult?
Yes.
When people get into a cult, essentially, what is that?
Well, it's a group of people that believe in an idea that the cult leader is spewing out.
Exactly right. And so is the message some form of you will follow the cult leader
Yeah.
or you don't get to play?
Right.
Okay. So what happens to people who get into a cult and stay in it for a while?
Well, they get to play with it and enjoy it, but not really full. It's fake.
And is there a lot of people that work overtime to get unstuck from the cult?
Yeah.
The cult.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reality is everything about woke, that was manufactured by a bunch of crazy people who somehow or another think they can promote that program where you get your your pronouns and all that kind of nonsense. I mean, it's something that I find offensively counterproductive.
Yeah. Do you think it's pivoting and turning away from do you think we're turning away from it now?
It appears that grown-up people that are my age or older are now looking at all this ridiculous language and method and all that kind of stuff. You're a fascist, or you're
Well, it's name calling. to stop a
All
conversation.
that stuff
Yeah.
is just, it's irritating.
It's conversation stoppers. That's
Yeah,
what
it's
those
all
words
about
are.
I'm unhappy, so I want you to feel badly about
And if-
what I just told you about yourself.
And if you don't agree with me, then you're either a fascist or
something.
racist or whatever.
something.
Pick your
That's right.
prerogative, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another question. There's a department of the United States government that's getting formed. It's called DOGE.
Okay.
It's the department of that's going to control the overspending and the
Right.
overregulation.
Yes.
And the all the government jobs that are out there that are not necessary.
Okay.
All the agencies.
They're trying to
can
streamline
it and think.
right,
do you-
and get rid of the fluff.
yes. So what do you think about that? About the next the next president, being able to do something like that. The next administration.
Okay. Do I think that those people can change the nature of the country?
First of all, the question is, do you think that's a good idea?
Do I think that everything you try to do, whether you're remodeling your house or you're trying to get that organization going or
Clean your
whatever,
garage.
yeah, my thoughts are, is that always going to have a good outcome? The answer is no. On the other hand, isn't it remarkable when you actually do clean out the garage, it looks better and you feel better about yourself because now it's clean.
Right.
So my thoughts are people, or some people, for example, Republicans, are they beginning to, because it looks like the country will pull itself together and get its ducks lined up in a row.
It seems that way.
Yeah, it seems that way. But the question is it fair to conclude that if you, for example, you want your farm to produce well, you have to do lots of maintenance on the farm.
Right.
And then if you have a lot of maintenance on the farm and you operate from common sense and you take responsibility for whatever needs to be done, is your farm likely to be more effective than the neighborhood's farm?
I think you have a better chance.
Yeah.
But then you also run the risk of overdoing it and then getting rid of stuff from your garage that you actually needed.
Yes. On the other hand, you ever notice how difficult it is to get rid of some of your stuff?
Yeah. Because
So-
it took you 20 years to
So
store it and keep it.
What's interesting about your stuff is you really never knew how important your stuff was until you got rid of it.
Yeah. And sometimes you even forget you had it.
Exactly.
Okay. So that was the answer to the first part of the question. Second part of the question, do you think it's possible to do? To make that department and do all those cuts and make all those changes to streamline it.
Do I think it's possible?
Yes.
Is it likely? No. And the reason for that is you have to get a plethora of people out there willing to step up to the goal.
Yeah.
And some people do that, and a lot of people don't.
It's going to be it's going to be tough.
Well, it is,
I agree
because-
with you that that's something that should be done, but I think the application of making it happen, I think it's going to be a little ugly sometimes.
Well, it will, because, for example, the Democrats have essentially lost everything.
Right.
And the Republicans are doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing well simply because they have a different mindset about how they run their lives. And so is it going to be a smooth improvement? No.
No, it's going to be ugly.
Well, sometimes it's going to be
Yeah.
ugly, and other times it's going to be really nice.
And they're going to overcorrect, and then maybe they have to go back a little bit. So
Well, let's just think about it. Let's suppose you want to take your garage and you want to fix it.
Right.
Let's take something that could be pretty simple and yet really does require initiative to do.
right.
And you want to clean up your house and you want to get rid of all the junk and you want to make the place smell good and look good and all that good stuff, right?
Yes.
All right. Some people do that. And then they feel proud of themselves because they went the distance.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a whole bunch of other people who, well, I was going to, but I don't want to now. I don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
Or how about this one? You ever had somebody want to talk to you about an important subject?
Yes.
And when they want to talk to you about the important subject, you say something from, but I don't want to talk about it. You ever do that?
They change their mind. Yeah.
This is not something I want to talk
But
about.
they don't want to deal with it.
Right.
They don't want to deal with it.
All right. So I have a relative of mine who never wants to talk about it, whatever it is. Any subject, he doesn't want to talk about
Some people don't like change. But I have a feeling that this Doge department is going to push for change.
Well, I think
And so
there's some competent people
Yeah.
that now have some kind of an assignment to contribute to that change that you're talking about.
Right.
And do I think they're going to make some headway? I think the answer is yes.
I hope so, and I hope they make good headway, and I hope that it's for the better of both Republicans and also Democrats, because we're all Americans.
Well,
And so-
what
and
I would
so-
say to you is the following: that the single biggest thing that makes hopeful people hopeful
Yes.
is to believe in the quality of the American society.
Yes.
And while there's a series of real chowderheads out there that are doing bad things, the point is the more you have people living at higher standards because they want the quality to either return or to build bigger,
Yes.
what ends up happens is people want, it's kind of like people want to live in a different neighborhood. Why do they want to live in a different neighborhood? Because the people are nicer there, or the place is cleaner there,
Right.
or there's a better standard of education, or whatever it is. The point is, people
It's a better place.
when people move to a different area when it seems like it's a better place to live in.
Yeah, if you have the means, you never move to a crappier neighborhood, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Another question.
Oh, by the way, you'll notice that most of our conversation so far has to do about, I think it's called the obvious.
Yeah, the obvious and accountability and the strong foundations.
There you go.
Okay, so this administration has been talking about getting rid of the Department of Education,
Yes.
getting the control away from the federal government and making it more localized with the states.
Yes.
What are your feelings on that?
My thoughts are the single biggest impediment to education has to do with essentially two populations. The first population has to do with most people in education belong to some kind of a union. And if they belong to some kind of a union, then the nature of the governing of that population of people in education somehow feel the need to congregate with each other to somehow or another improve the benefit of themselves.
You're talking about the teachers union,
There you go.
where it's you have a teacher that's been teaching for 30 years,
Right.
has no energy anymore.
Right.
It's just showing up and clocking in and clocking out, and not really caring about the outcome of the students.
Well, I'll
and
give
you
you
have
a-
the union that's protecting that teacher from getting fired.
A perfect example of that would be you went to school and you went to whatever the schools were that did whatever it was. I did 12 years in college to do everything that I did.
Right.
Here's the question. When you think about all of your education growing up, you had a variety of teachers and professors that presumably were supposed to teach you something. Is that right?
That's correct.
Is it fair to conclude it's going to be hard for you to fill up one hand, as you think about your experience with all those teachers? It's really hard to fill up one hand with teachers that knocked you out and that were really good.
I have 3 of them. That's it.
Okay.
All the rest were shitty teachers,
Yes, I know.
and that's the truth.
Okay. So,
Maybe I'm not the normal, but that was my experience, and so I think that it comes back to what you were saying, that the unions are not there to make sure the kids are getting taught. The unions are there to protect
themselves.
themselves and
Right.
the
That's sort of the difference between public schools and charter schools.
right.
The quality of the education in charter schools, parents are working overtime to get their kid in that school.
Yeah,
Why? They have different standards at charter schools.
they don't have to follow federal guidelines.
Yeah. So at the end of the day,
They're more accountable.
education is not to protect the teachers. Education is to help the kids learn something.
So our politicians need to figure a system out that helps the students, not the teachers, not the executives in the offices, not the principals.
Well, I'll give a quick example.
But the students.
Do you know one of the largest populations of people in education? Do you know what they do for a living in education?
What?
They are administrators.
Yeah, you're right. Now they are. There's more administrators than teachers.
Exactly right. What does that tell you right there?
That the system is broken. It's top heavy.
There you go.
So hopefully this new administration can fix it.
Well, let's hope so.
Or-
But the point is, when there are initiatives out there that hold people to a certain status that they have to have.
Uh-huh.
I remember my brother who worked as a laborer his whole life. He always wanted to work in some place where he would have a job, and he'd be there and then leave and then come back and all that kind of stuff.
He had a routine every day.
Every day. He had no future
Yeah.
that was within his control. So, he was a very responsible kind of guy. He was the kind of guy that would show up and do the job and do it well. And I remember this one story he told me many years ago about a couple of the supervisors at the plant that came up to him and said, hey, how about you calm down? You're making us look bad here. And my brother said to them, how about you guys improve your quality, okay?
Yeah.
They didn't like him. They didn't want to talk to him.
Yeah.
So why did my brother say, how about you just improve your own quality?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
My brother was very disciplined. He was willing to do what was necessary. And yet, a whole bunch of people in education are not willing to do what's necessary, which is why more than half the time, if you're sick and you need to go see a doctor, and the doctor may be really clinically smart, but the doctor doesn't know how to create a relationship at all,
Yeah.
then now you're thinking, I'm wasting my time with this chowderhead because this person doesn't seem to care at all about me.
So there needs to be a system in place for our education where it rewards outstanding teachers and rewards the teachers that get the good students to learn
Yeah.
and excel.
You realize,
And that we don't have that system right now
well, let's just put it this
because
way.
our system protects mediocrity.
Mediocrity, exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Perry, my last question.
Oh,
And I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm still going to ask you.
okay, go ahead.
When are you going to get an electric vehicle? And I've seen what you drive. They're pretty cool damn cars. So when are you going to get an electric vehicle?
I'm going to see if I can be quick and sassy in my response. I'm not going to have one.
Why did I think you were going to answer that?
Why did you think I was
Yeah, why did I think you were going to answer that? Why would you not ever want an electric vehicle?
Because, how do I say this? Have you ever had somebody in your employ he's supposed to do the job,
Yes.
and then he doesn't do a very good job?
You get rid of them, or you never hire that type of person anymore.
Why? Because he's not doing the job.
So you're thinking electric vehicles are not doing their job.
I'm not thinking. I know. I know electric
Yeah.
vehicles are good for people who are perfectly okay with sitting there trying to charge their vehicle.
Yeah.
Moreover, one of these self-driving cars,
Yes.
are you insane? Do you know how many
I wouldn't
people
trust
get,
her right now.
I would never have an electric vehicle any more than I would get a self-driving car.
Okay.
Hell no.
All right.
No.
Well,
Oh, by the way,
yes.
I don't care if you like that or you don't like that.
No,
I'm
it
just
doesn't
never
matter.
going to have an EV. Not
Yeah.
going to have it.
I believe you. That's what I thought your answer was going to be when I asked you the question. But anyway, Dr. Perry, I want to appreciate you coming back. Hopefully this won't be the last, and we'll keep them coming. And as we need a psychologist to let us know what the United States is going through, I'm going to have to invite you back and talk a little bit more.
How do I say this? First, the pleasure was mine. And secondly, I'm always very fortunate to be able to work with you on this stuff. And what I would say to you is, The more you live your life in a way that puts a premium on being healthy and puts a premium on operating from common sense, because as you know, common sense is very uncommon.
Yes.
The more you live your life and you show care and regard and appreciation and patience and understanding, the more you in your family show affection and willingness to forgive. One of the single most impressive dimensions of religion, in my opinion, is in the Catholic religion or similar Catholic religions, it's the ones that put the premium on forgiveness. Forgiveness it calms down the wrath of God.
Yeah.
So my thoughts are, the more you're contributing to society, the more you are looking in the mirror and feeling good about what you've done with your life, the more you are touching people's lives, then your whole life is a by far richer and a more very, very pleasant and lovely way of living your life.
Yeah.
And all I can tell you is when I think about what I've been doing ever since I started out in this profession, I get to touch people's lives for a living. I get to.
Yeah.
And so by virtue of what I've learned how to do to affect people like this, I help them through a series of questions, because I don't give much advice. It's almost always questions. And then I have them start processing the questions, and then they have to start thinking about, oh, gee, maybe I could do it like that. And then I'll say, exactly. So what are your thoughts? You see what I mean?
You're teaching them how to think
Oh, gee.
instead of telling them what to think.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
And
Dr. Perry, once again, thank you so much. It was awesome. It was great. I loved it. And we'll see you next time.
I will look forward to it and give my best to your family. Okay?
I will. You too.
Okay.